So it is the last Tuesday of White History Month for July. And every last Tuesday of the month, our friend is with us, Bill Lockwood. And Bill is a writer and radio host at American Liberty with Bill Lockwood, teacher in Wichita Falls, Texas, and preacher at Our Park Church of Christ. Bill, welcome to the show. Welcome back.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to being with you always.
Thank you. Same here. Happy White History Month.
Thank you for that. That's great.
This is our fourth year celebrating White History Month. So, and it's starting to grow and grow and grow.
All right. I didn't realize that. Well, I'm glad.
Yeah. What do you think about the idea of White History Month?
Well, you know what? Since we're a minority anymore, we might as well have it.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
Whites are, yeah, Caucasians are a minority in the state of Texas, and keeping the borders wide open, we're going to be a minority on this whole, in the entire North American continent. So might as well have it.
Why won't the governor of Texas put the military on the border there in Texas? Can't he do that and stop that down there?
You know what? I think that they should. I think they ought to. I personally believe that that the federal government is fighting against the states, and the sooner we realize that we're not going to win the entire war by simply going to court, then we will be able to do this. But by the time we go to court, which Greg Abbott wants to do, he wants to sue the federal government on a continual basis, and that may be fine, but by the time that those things go working through the courts, and the courts, some of them favoring the federal government, and some of them, you know, in the appeal process, we're going to be overrun. It's going to be too late. It's already basically too late. So I just think that we need to do that very thing. Put the troops down there, and let's see what the federal government does about that.
Because they've already allowed over 1 million illegal aliens into the country already. The year's not up yet. And these people are coming in from around the world, not just Mexico and El Salvador and those places. They're coming from everywhere now. They're coming in with no mask for the most part. They don't know if they have the Chinese virus or not. And while the government is trying to do a lockdown on the American people, they're letting in all these people. And it just seemed to be so crazy. It looked like there would be a major outcry from the citizens, from the American people to stop this. But I don't see rallying and I don't see an outcry against it.
I don't either. I'm very, very concerned about that, probably facet of it as well as anything. The fact that the hypocrisy is so absolutely deep, which always, of course, hypocrisy points to ulterior motives. And the ulterior motives is to ruin this country, to make it to a Marxist nation, and to destroy it by overflooding our borders, as well as completely erasing God and a culture of a religion out of our culture. So being that being the case, and they're at war with America, this is a war. And as soon as we can realize that fact, then perhaps we might be able to be emboldened to do something. But, you know, it's very sad because we're losing it immediately. So I think the federal government should be shutting down the border. The fact that there are no masks on many of the people, and a large percentage of them are COVID positive patients, shows the federal government is not interested in the health of the American people. They're interested in totalitarian control. And so when people come up to me and say, you know, where's your mask? I just look, they're letting people over the border without masks, and they're COVID positive. They're not about the health of the American people. They're about totalitarian control.
Do you think that the average American know this? Do you think they see that the government is about control now and nothing else? Are the people blind to what's going on?
I believe so. I believe that we've been put to sleep. I believe that we've been put to sleep in the churches. I believe we've been put to sleep in the society generally, on the streets. People are interested in going to the next ball game, and that's about the end of it. And that's as deep as we think frequently. So I'm really, really concerned. I know that there's a large segment that is awakening, and I will give them that. But we're really in totalitarianism now, and it's just working out the details. Is all that's going on is now beginning to work out the details. We've lost our First Amendment. We've lost our Second Amendment. We lost the Fourth Amendment years and years and years ago. We don't even have a Fourth Amendment. So we've lost all of that. The court system is a mess. So what do we have as far as the rights of the people, God-given rights? We don't have anything left. And it's just working that out. How's this going to work out now?
I've been wondering how is this happening and why. And so on Sunday, I talked about how they have demoralized the American people, especially the Generation Z and the generations after me. And these people, most people have no values anymore. There's no shame. It's not uncommon now for mothers to allow their sons or daughters to bring their boyfriends home and sleep in their home and have sex and live there in some cases. And in some cases, they're still teenagers. And the parents are and some of these parents are supposed to be Christian parents. They have no value, there's no shame about that at all. It's not uncommon now for men and women to get together and not be married. It's not uncommon for men to live at home after 18. And I know cases where men are 60 years old and still live with mama. To smoke pot, to get high. And it's like all values are gone now. And when you demoralize a person, you can control them. And so over the years, they have demoralized the population. And that's why they can just do what they want now.
You're right about that. That's very, very sad. And that's been going on pretty strongly since the 1960s, where, people are interested more in sex, drugs, and rock and roll than they are the principles by which we should live. And so many people in the past have had the idea, well, just leave me alone. And what's going to hurt society if I get high all the time?
Right.
The real issue is, what the real issue is, number one, can I be of service to God with my head in the clouds? Number two, can I be of real service to the community and to America and the principles of freedom with my head in the clouds? Can I do that? The answer is no. People ask me all the time, well, what does the Bible say about smoking pot? The Bible tells us to take care of our bodies, and our bodies are the temple of the Holy Spirit, which are in you, which is in you. We have from God. You're not your own. You are bought with a price. So the idea that we can do with our bodies as we will and doesn't make any difference, and we can smoke cigarettes and we can drink alcohol and we can party and all these things, that's all self-centered idolatry is what it amounts to. And we've been doing that since the 1970s.
Yeah.
So that was a big problem, and now it's exponentially grown to proportions that really it's out of control. So what are we going to do about it?
I remember when I reflect on the years gone by, when they wanted to remove the word shame, and they would do these different talk shows, and they would encourage people not to be ashamed of being wrong or being corrupt. Like the homosexuals and the other, they would tell them, come out of the closet. Don't be ashamed. Don't be the... And now you have sluts and slut makers on the internet and twerking and carrying on with no shame. Women are walking around with little or nothing on, showing their breasts and their nasty butts, and just no shame.
Right.
We got to bring the shame back, because if you... When I was younger, when I did things wrong, when I was wrong, I knew I was wrong. At the time, I didn't know how to overcome it, but I was ashamed of it. I wouldn't promote it. I wouldn't want anyone to know as though it was something good. That's all gone now.
Right. It is all gone. And we even have, to the extent where people make their bodies some kind of billboard with tattoos all over them.
Yeah.
It's all self-centered godlessness. I mean, are we actually giving our bodies to Christ and giving our energies to God and the Lord's church? Are we interested in that or not? No, we seem to be more interested in how I can beautify myself, or follow the culture and make my body a billboard for any kind of sign that doesn't make any difference just because the culture's doing it. And the undertow culture has taken over. But as far as being driven by the Bible, we are not.
Amazing. Yesterday, according to Breitbart, Joe Biden announced that workers in the Department of Veteran Affairs will have to be vaccinated. And the Secretary of Veteran Affairs says that the vaccinated is mandated. Is that unconstitutional?
I believe so. Absolutely. Absolutely. They're going to have to, first of all, find out whether you have been vaccinated, yes or no. And if you, you've lost your Fourth Amendment rights immediately. Whatever happened to the HIPAA laws and all this, that we're not to be, we should not be forced to expose or forced to reveal our medical history and what's going on with what happened to HIPAA law? We've lost all of that. It doesn't make any difference because we are in totalitarianism. And this totalitarianism is beginning to shake out. So they're going to throw out a few lines, and they're going to try a few experiments like this. That particular department of the government. Next, it'll be, and it's already being done in the schools and the colleges and universities, which are arms of the government anymore. Just as big tech is an arm of the government, and now the military is being utilized by the government. So all of these things are going to be taking place with the government. What's left? What's left? Very little.
And knowing that these things are unconstitutional, where are the Republicans? Where are the lawyers? Where is someone that can stop this?
I don't know.
Because it is unconstitutional. How come they are able to just get away with it?
You know what? We have been so unconstitutional for 75 or more years that people have really lost their sensibility about the Constitution. The entire program, and I reach a lot of this back to the welfare state that was pushed by FDR. The welfare state was absolutely unconstitutional. Every single 9 justices of the Supreme Court said it was unconstitutional, but they started power politics and they pushed everything through. And so we've lost our sensibilities as to the Constitution and the rights before God. And the 10th Amendment, of course, we lost that many, many, many years ago. And to regain these things, as conservatives such as myself and yourself have been saying for years, to regain these requires blood and sacrifice. And I don't know that people are going to be able to do that.
Yeah, I doubt that. It doesn't seem that way at all.
I doubt it very seriously.
And so, Bill, we don't have a Republican Party anymore, right? It seemed to be a one-party system because the Republicans is going along with this crap. Some of them, you will hear them mouthing off on TV, but then behind the scenes, they're not stopping anything. Crime is through the roof now, and it's getting worse. They're letting the inmates out of prisons, and they're defunding the police. And black people, every time I look at TV, they're stealing. There's like on the run from stealing, crime going through the roof. People being in Chicago, it's just out of control.
Oh, it's terrible. Terrible.
I heard a report that even Barbara Boxer was mugged the other day out of Oakland. I'm like, now you see what's going on, right?
Yeah, right.
I don't, and then this critical race, so-called critical race theory, it is happening now. It's in every aspect of life. And not only do I not hear white people stopping it, I just never seen people be so quiet on what's going on. I just don't know what they think the outcome would be by being silenced about all this.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. And the critical race theory is basically neo-Marxism is what it is, but it has taken over our university system, but it has done that since the early part of the last century, where the universities went wholly in favor of socialism, Marxism. But be sure of this: it's an anti-God movement, and that was the desire of many of the professors and the professorships, and that was the big carrot, that it was so based on atheism, and so they ran as hard as they could with it. And neo-Marxism took over in the 1960s, where they kind of remodeled it to form, to make, instead of the bourgeois and the proletariat as the classic Marxism is, they made it black versus white, which was always part of the Chinese Communist plan anyway. They've even stated it was part of the plan. We have a natural wedge in our society between blacks and whites, a natural wedge, and they're going to exploit it. And that exploitation is what was occurring on the college campuses from the 1960s specifically on. And it has been rolling into the public school system and only been exposed very recently, but it's already entrenched so deeply that we're just now awakening to the fact. So now what? Well, you better get your kids out of those public schools. You better get your kids and don't send them to these state universities that are teaching this kind of stuff, because that's where they're going to be indoctrinated, unless they're very solid on the biblical principles, and that's what the problem is.
And you're right about that. There is this group, a story I have coming up later about I guess a black group out of Texas somewhere that have sent a notice around to all the white liberal elitist people who are supposed to be supporting this whole Black Lives Matter thing and critical race. These white people who are in support of that, they have sent a notice to the white people telling them not to put their children in the Ivy League schools, so that the blacks and the Mexicans can get in, and that if they don't, if they put their children in, then they're going to expose them. They're going to list their names of all the whites who refuse to keep their children out of the so-called Ivy League university so that the blacks can get in.
Oh, that's just ridiculous. That is absolutely absurd. We've lost our minds in this country, and to think that we would continue to back up and to be so weak in this onslaught is so alarming. But there's really only one answer, and that is the gospel of Christ. That's the only answer that can solve this, where people can realize the gospel of Christ rises you above it, and individually saves a soul and sets you on the road to heaven. But if we can't get our spiritual values in line, then there's no hope for us individually, let alone the entire nation.
Yeah, we got to change the hearts and minds of the people, turn them back to God. Otherwise, you're right, it is absolutely over. I also have been saying, Bill, to the American people that South Africa, you know what happened in South Africa when the blacks took over South Africa? They defunded.
With the help of the United States, by the way.
With the help of the United States?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The help of the United States. The United States put tremendous amount. The Democrats in the United States, such as back in the Clinton days, if you remember, everything you heard about was apartheid. Everything you heard, apartheid. So we put economic pressure on them. We political pressure through the United Nations. We just couldn't stand it. America couldn't stand that we have a white government with blacks on the bottom. That is the biggest wrong that was ever heard of. So apartheid. So we wrecked the system, and the blacks are in charge. And now you can tell the rest of the story. I'm sorry to interrupt you there.
No, you're right about that. You're absolutely right. And they have, because I remember when they turned Nelson Mandela into a hero. And Nelson Mandela was a communist, and they used to bring him here. He would raise a lot of money. Oprah and all them were licking his boots, and they pushed Nelson Mandela as he was a hero. And now the ANC and others are destroying South Africa. White people are being murdered, robbed, and raped. They defunded the police. They're taking their land without compensation. The lands of the white people, and there is no help for the whites in South Africa at all. No one is doing or saying anything about it.
No, they're not. And America is going to pay for her crimes, and that was one of the huge crimes of America, that we absolutely intermeddled in a sovereign nation because we didn't like the racial makeup. And so our government, the Democratic Party, being driven by the Democrats, insisted on getting in there and changing it up. And so this is what you get. Regardless of the fact that Nelson Mandela was an avowed communist, he practiced necklacing, burning bodies himself at the African National Congress, and we lionized him in America. We still lionize him as some great person because he was able to change this apartheid system. So now this is what you get. And that's where America is going to pay for crimes right there.
Amazing. That is happening in America now. South Africa is growing in America right now. Is the
Right.
radical
That's
blacks
right.
are taking over. They are defunding the police. They're letting the inmates out of prison. Crime going through the roof, and they are mistreating the white farmers in America, and by not
Right.
supporting them financially. So South Africa is happening in America, and I'm sending out the warning sign, but no one seemed to listen.
No, they're not. They're not listening. I'll tell you another. There are many countries that we have intermeddled in with our foreign policy through democratic administrations and have ruined and destroyed the country, such as Iran. During Jimmy Carter's period, we had a just coming up to Jimmy Carter's presidency, we had a great friend in Iran. The Shah of Iran was an American friend. He thought that we were his friends. And so he would send many foreign exchange students over here. But all the while, the Council on Foreign Relations and the Jimmy Carter administration had planned to cut the throat of the people of the Iranians and turn it over to the mullahs. And so it's exactly what happened. The Ayatollah Khomeini was a terrorist, Muslim terrorist, and we kept him, and our own CIA helped protect him in a chateau in France until the time was right and we could push the Shah out. The Shah left. We promised him he could come here. He landed in Texas, and Jimmy Carter told him, get out of our country. He left our country, and now what happened? Iran has been a thorn in our side ever since, and it's going to continue because the mullahs ruin with the sword of blood. And that's how they do it. And we did that in Iran. We did it in South Africa. America is in serious trouble because of our intermeddling for communist and Islamic causes around the world.
Amazing. So, Bill, we have about 5 minutes left here. I want to ask this. In the Bible, it says when we see these types of things happening, that it is a sign of the end time. What does the end time mean? Does it mean that the world is done? Or what does that mean, if you know? What does that mean? Have you read that before?
It depends on what passage you're talking about, really, Jesse. You know, Matthew chapter 24, which many people run to talk about the signs, is referring to the destruction of Jerusalem that occurred in AD 70 and is not referencing us at all.
Oh.
As a matter of fact, the signs that we have in Matthew 24 up to verse 34, he tells us, this generation will not pass away till all of these things are accomplished. And he was referring to the people of that day, at that time. The parallel passage, Luke chapter 21, even spells it out more clearly, where in Luke's rendition of the same speech that our Lord gave, he tells us, when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, you flee, for you know that her desolation is at hand. That's the abomination of desolation that was set up in the holy place as prophesied by Daniel the prophet. So those signs refer to not the end of the world, so to speak, not the end of time, but referring to the demise of Judaism and the destruction of Jerusalem. And the Jews around the world were persecuted. But that's what our Lord had said, and it was in direct repercussion because they had repudiated the Messiah. So many people mistake those passages as referencing what's in store for America today. The book of Revelation is really an expansion of Matthew chapter 24, referring to the destruction of Jerusalem and the things that occurred there. That's the same thing.
I totally believe that, Bill, because it just makes sense, man. It didn't make sense the way the Christians see it. So now I'm glad you said that, because the Christians are sitting around doing nothing, waiting on the end time. They think that the world is just going to end and it'll be all over. And I knew that wasn't true. It just wasn't going to go there.
Yeah, it has hamstrung so many Christian people, the belief that, okay, Christ is going to come back very shortly because we see these things lining up, and therefore don't get involved. He's going to handle it when he get. All those passages have nothing to do with America today, except in principle, perhaps. But as far as prophecy, they refer to the destruction of Judaism, the demise and the destruction of the temple, in which Judaism was taken off of the map. The Judaism today does not equal the Judaism of the biblical times. There's not one person today that can prove he's a Jew and what tribe to which he belongs. You can't show that. All the records were destroyed. That was God's providence because of the repudiation of the Messiah, and he so stated in Matthew chapter 24, this generation will not pass away till all of these things are accomplished. Revelation is set up the same way. Revelation chapter 1, Revelation chapter 22, these things must shortly come to pass. They're near at hand. All of these things are for those people at that time, and we look back and see the prophecies fulfilled, and we rejoice that God fulfilled prophecy. But as far as the prophecies for us today, they do not apply.
Amazing. That makes sense, Bill. Bill, tell the folks how to listen to your radio show, how to get to your website, and all the good things.
Sure. Thank you, Jesse, for that. Well, the radio show is American Liberty with Bill Lockwood, and the website is exactly the same, AmericanLibertyWithBillLockwood.com. The radio show is out of Wichita Falls and Lubbock and Abilene. And then it's also on a YouTube channel, which is American Liberty with Bill Lockwood. So you can pick up any show that I've done. And then I have another short little show called Writing for the Bible Brand, and that's also on YouTube.
Nice. Bill, thank you so much for being on with us. I'm being told that the program is going to cut off in a minute here. But thank
you. I saw that. I saw.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, what now?
All right. You look kind of worried there. Okay.
I didn't want to just cut you off because I do want the people to help you. I want them to go to your website. I want them to listen to your radio show because it is amazing. I'm sorry?
Well, thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I say they can contribute on the website, and they can go to the website, and there's a donate button there. So AmericanLibertyWithBillLockwood.com.
All right. Thank you so much, Bill. We'll talk again soon.
Okay. Yes, sir. Thank you so much. The Lord bless your work, Jesse.
All right. Thank you, buddy. Amazing. Happy White History Month, Bill.
All right. Thank you for that.
Amazing. And don't forget to like, follow, tweet, subscribe, and share the Jesse Lee Peterson radio show, folks. We really appreciate it. We are at war. It is a spiritual battle for the soul of America. And it's going to take all of us to do it.